Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to SEC Talk Rivalry Week edition. We are here on the last week of the regular season as this college football season continues to go fast as always. But we are once again here talking a crazy Week 12 in the SEC. We're going to be talking about them South Carolina Gamecocks pulling off the top five upset in Williams-Brice Stadium. So I know that you're happy about that. So we'll bring in my co-host Wade. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah, that was quite the upset. South Carolina coming out of nowhere, flipping the script on Tennessee. 23-point underdogs winning the game by 22, so 25.
Yeah.
So really good showing for South Carolina. And yeah, other than that, it was a pretty standard week in the SEC. North Carolina did get upset outside the conference, and UCLA and USC, they played a thriller.
Yeah, and they also had a lot of scares in the top five. We almost saw TCU get upset, and then we also saw Michigan fall to Illinois as well. So, we could have been seeing some crazy chaos in the playoff shakeup. But speaking of those playoff rankings, those just got released here a couple of minutes ago. I was tuning into that. So let's get into our SEC teams in that CFP top 25 poll. And still the same. Number one is Georgia, even after, there was a struggle, but they ended up dominating that game 16-6. Number five, LSU, they moved up a spot after a 41-10 victory over UAB at home. Number seven, Alabama, they moved up a spot as well with their home victory against Austin Peay. And number 10, Tennessee, that's the story of the week. They fell from number five to number 10. That's what gave the open room for LSU and Alabama to move up as well. And the number 20, Ole Miss, they fell from number 14 to number 20 after pretty much getting blown out by Arkansas. So still the same teams, but there was a little bit of shuffle in the SEC teams in the college football playoff. Any surprises that you see here and outside of the nation as well?
I mean, I thought it was a little surprising to see Ole Miss still at 20. I think they were number 14 going into the
Yeah.
game. I kind of thought they should be like number 22 or 23. I mean, this team just kind of has fallen off the rails here as of late. And Tennessee, I thought maybe would kind of slip into that 12 to 15 range, but I can't argue against it. At this point, there's just a handful of teams in playoff contention, and the rest of it's just based on, regional ties for bowl games and travel. So, the cards will fall how they fall. I mean, you're going to look at a team like LSU, Alabama, and Tennessee. I mean, you got to think somehow they'll shake between the sugar, the cotton, and the Orange Bowl in some form or fashion.
Yeah, absolutely. So we will definitely find out, if we're going to get one or two SEC teams. It really depends. The only path now, now that Tennessee's gone, that LSU has to beat Georgia for the SEC to get two teams in. And if Georgia wins, then they're ultimately a lock. And I think they're locked anyways. I mean, they're going to get in, even if they lose SEC championship, bar and they don't lose to Georgia Tech this weekend. But we will see if that happens. So let's get into our reminder segment here of the show. Just to remind you, and also, yes, happy Thanksgiving to everyone this week. As you can tell, it's a little bit different here of our PowerPoint. I decided to do a little bit. We usually
That's
do
it.
this. We
I
usually
like it.
do this every year. So Thanksgiving. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave us a comment about the SEC or about some Thanksgiving questions. Go ahead. So with that, let's get into our main segment here is the SEC Fantasy presented by Buffalo Bayou Brewing Company, and that's our friends over in H-Town. If you can head over there, you can also check out their website, buffbrew.com. Got some of the best beer and the views of the city. The brews and the views, that's what you get at Buffalo Bayou Brewing Company, so go check them out if you're ever in H-Town. So let's kick things off here in SEC Fantasy for our weekly rules. These will obviously change next year, and then also into the bowl season, this will become two. But pretty much one in each position: the quarterback, running back, the receiver, and the defense. And then our weekly rule: we cannot pick the same player back-to-back weeks. We've been doing a pretty good job on that. So let's see if our teams did a good job this week, as we'll check in on how your team did in week number 12.
Yeah, overall, I was fairly impressed with my team's effort, especially at quarterback and defense. The skill position players, not so much. Brady Cook, though, at quarterback, he did exactly what I expected. I said, hey, if he can get me 250 in a high
There we
scoring
go.
game, then I will be happy. And he gave me a bonus yard. He went for 251. Montreal Johnson and the Florida Gators really couldn't get it done on the ground. Interestingly enough, the guy you see there in the background, Anthony Richardson, threw for 400 yards in this one, albeit a losing effort for Florida on the road against Vanderbilt. We'll talk about that here in a little bit on the recap, but definitely thought I was going to get a better day out of my number one pick, Johnson, 32 points. Evan Stewart actually didn't play in this game. He was a late scratch, but once you
If
see
I would have known
Tyler's
that, I would
total,
have given you the
well,
the
no, it's
bad
all
pass.
good because once we see Tyler's total, it didn't matter if this man got 200 yards. So, um, anyways, he had a concussion and did not play, but A&M really didn't get it going on offense at all in that one. And then the LSU defense, they looked pretty good. They let up 259 yards. Really good day for the Tigers, and they're really starting to put together some good defensive efforts. So I was able to stay in the positives at 24 yards.
Yeah, I mean LSU's defense, you see the 259 yards, but I feel like most of that was in the first half. I mean, they really shut down, the best running back in the country in UAB. So 24 yards, if you can stay in the positives, that's a good sign for SEC fantasy. Like you mentioned, you kind of hinted at how my team did, and they flexed their muscle here in week number 12. I mean, especially Raheem Sanders. We'll get to him. Hendon Hooker, tragic news that he received a torn ACL, so his Tennessee career is done. We'll get to a little bit more of that when we get to our hot topics. But still, 247 yards, even in the loss against South Carolina. But man, Raheem Sanders got that hog in him, 232 yards.
He showed out for you finally.
Man,
He's been playing well for me all year,
yeah.
so he showed the love to your team.
Man, this was the best showing here in SEC fantasy by running back this season. And Ladd McConkey, I was expecting more, but still 28 yards. I will definitely take that. And then Texas A&M's defense, they were the defense of the week, 168 yards. And this is my best score of the year by far, 339. So I will definitely take that. So with that, that gives me the number one pick heading into this rivalry week. And what a crazy matchups we got here. But with my number one overall pick, I went with Will Rogers against Mississippi State. I just feel like after seeing Ole Miss's defense, they did not look too good against Arkansas, especially on the ground. But Mississippi State, Will Rogers, Will Rogers did what Will Rogers is known for, putting up 5 touchdowns against ETSU. But you're going to go with Bryce Young in the Iron Bowl.
Yeah, I had to match your star power here, so I went with Bryce Young. He hasn't really been lighting it up statistically for SEC fantasy purposes. He's really, he's pretty much good for like 250, 260, but rarely has he eclipsed 300 yards. But he has a good chance to do it against Auburn. I don't know if they'll need him much, but there's really no need for Alabama to hold anything back. You're not resting for the SEC championship game, and I expect Alabama to just want to beat their rivals pretty bad. So hopefully Bryce Young gets to sling it. But yeah, your guy Will Rogers, good matchup for him against Ole Miss in a very good game on Thanksgiving.
Fair enough. So let's go on to the running backs. We'll see if we're going to see Rocket Sanders once again, and we do not. We actually see Quinshon Judkins, who has been the number 2, running back behind Raheem Sanders.
Yep, Quinshon Judkins joined Sanders on Saturday in the 200-yard company. So he had a very good game against the Arkansas Razorbacks. Both of those teams just ran. I think there was like 600 combined rushing yards. Zach Evans went over 200 as well.
Jeez.
Craziness. So got to give Judkins his support here. He's just a freshman. I don't know if it's because he wears number 4 and is having a breakout freshman year, but he reminds me a lot of Tank Bigsby a couple of years ago. And he's having a really good season. So I look for him to have a good Egg Bowl.
Well, he's getting the Tank Bigsby love whenever he was a freshman here in SEC Fantasy. A lot of picks. So I'm going to go for new face here, Jace McClellan. He's been the RB2 for the most part for Alabama, but Jahmyr Gibbs has been out. And it's not unclear that if Gibbs will play. So I'm going to go with Jace McClellan. I already told Wade that if Gibbs plays, then I'm going to take him instead. So whoever, who's going to be the RB1, that's who I'm going with. I just feel like I agree with you. I mean, I just feel like Alabama's offense, against Auburn defense, I feel like Alabama is going to want to end their regular season on a high note. They had offensive struggles in the first half against Austin P and then was able to light up the scoreboard. But McCullough really had a good game against Austin P, over 100 yards rushing and then a couple of touchdowns on the ground. So I feel confident going with the Alabama star running back. So now let's go on to the pass catchers. And you're going to go with a guy who tore the Volunteer defense apart, Antoine Wells.
Yeah, I just kept it simple this week on SEC Fantasy. I looked at last week's box scores and took all the studs. So Antoine Wells, very good game for him. Had a great connection with Spencer Rattler, and I think that's going to have to continue for South Carolina on Saturday if they're going to beat Clemson. I mean, Wells just has to show out. He had 11 catches, so look for him to have a similar effort. I don't know if he'll quite dominate as much. I do think Clemson has a very talented secondary, but I just think the connection's there for him to have a good day.
Yeah, the connection is going to have to be there. South Carolina wants to pull off two back-to-back top 10 matchups. But I'm going to go Malik Neighbors. He's coming off of a good game against UAB, had 120 yards. I feel like the LSU offense got back on track against UAB, and they're facing a Texas A&M team that I just don't know which version of them is going to show up. I feel like their defense, has been good enough for them to win the ball games. The offense hasn't, but I feel like Malik Neighbors has been the go-to guy. We saw Booty. He was out with the flu. We'll see if he's going to be back this week. But I still feel confident in Malik Neighbors putting up some good yardage against Texas A&M. So now to finish off the SEC Fantasy Draft here in week number 13, let's go on to the defenses. And this are probably the two top defenses here in the SEC. You're going to go with the Crimson Tide versus Auburn.
Yeah, these are the two regulars right here. Georgia definitely has a favorable matchup against Georgia Tech and Alabama. They have a favorable matchup as well within the SEC against Auburn. So I think both of these units should be just fine. I think the offenses will run away with it, and I think the defense, I think both of these teams can pitch an under 300-yard effort, especially Georgia.
Yeah, this has been a yearly tradition for me for picking Georgia in the rivalry week against Georgia Tech. It's been working out pretty good, especially in the last couple of years where Georgia has absolutely dominated this series. But Georgia, I mean, they just shut down Kentucky's offense. I mean, Georgia Tech had a good showing against North Carolina, but I just don't see it here. I think that Georgia's going to really bog them down, and Georgia Tech won't be able to find the end zone that much. So I'm going to give credit here for the Dogs, the defense. So with SEC Fantasy Draft, let's go on to some recapping here in week number 12. Like we mentioned, we'll talk about that crazy game there in Columbia, South Carolina. But before that, we have some snoozer games to talk about, a little cupcake schedule that some of the SEC teams had. And the first game was an early morning kickoff in T-Town. Number 8, Alabama hosted Austin P. And Austin P is in the FCS playoffs. They finished their season 7-4. But did not face very well against this Alabama team. I mean, Austin P had this one pretty close. I mean, losing 34-0, that's as respectable as you can get. Usually Alabama puts it on you like 63-0. But like I mentioned earlier, the Alabama offense really struggled in this one. Bryce Young had 2 touchdowns in this game, but Jace McClellan, 17 carries, 156 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He really was a show in this one. But like we mentioned, we really have to talk about this one. Alabama just handling their business at home. But I'm sure we will get into this next one. This, as we mentioned, has those ETSU Bucks, and they did not favor so well against Mississippi State, 56-7. And like we mentioned, Will Rogers, 301 yards, 5 touchdowns, and only 7 incompletions as ETSU didn't have any had really no sign of offense in this one, and either no sign of defense. This was a big struggle for ETSU.
Always hard to stop Will Rogers. So no fault to ETSU here. A lot of SEC teams also look pretty dumbfounded by this Mississippi State air raid offense. But for ETSU, just kind of trying to find your footing under a new coaching staff and rebuilding for next season. But nice little payday, a good little road trip down to the deep south to play State. Mississippi State looked the part and should set up an exciting Thursday night matchup this week for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, I know that ETSU will get their shot on the hardwood as they are going to face, some SEC opponents. So we'll see if they can keep it closer than they did on the gridiron. See if their basketball team can do better. So we will see about that. And the next game we'll go to is another cupcake that a SEC team had, and that was the Texas A&M Aggies. They picked up their fourth win on the season, and it was pretty ugly. I mean, by the half, there was really no one at Kyle Field. I don't know if any of y'all saw those pictures on Twitter. This offense continues to struggle without Devon A-Chain, really their star running back. And then Connor Weigman did get back on track. He only threw for a touchdown as this was a defensive battle. I mean, UMass is one of the worst teams in college football. I mean, they're 1-9 for a reason, but the backup Le'Veon Moss was able to get it done, 78 yards on the ground, a touchdown. But I still have a lot of concerns for Texas A&M. I mean, putting up 20 points only against a one-win team is just, ew. They need an offense coordinator or something.
Yeah, another flat effort here for Texas A&M. I mean, even Devon A-Chain didn't play in this one, and that's pretty much their only source of life and talent on that offense. So, I mean, we kind of got to see it all the way at its bare bones, and he's not going to be there next year, so they better figure out something.
Yeah, they better figure out something quick or get like another 5-star running back, either in the transfer portal or in this next upcoming recruiting class. So now we finally get an SEC divisional matchup. And how about those Vanderbilt Commodores? I mean, not only did they break the streak, they got two SEC wins in a row. How about that? As they are just needing one win to become bowl eligible. So Vanderbilt ended up beating the Florida Gators 31-24. And really, Florida never got the lead in this one. This was a game controlled by Vanderbilt. We saw Mike Wright get the start in this one. Not too much in the passing. You see there in the stat line, only 108 yards, but he was able to get the job done. 3 touchdowns as well. Ray Davis had a good game on the ground as well. Didn't result in any touchdowns, but he was able to move the ball effectively against his Florida defense. But, man, Florida, was a team a couple of weeks ago like, okay, they beat Texas A&M. That's a good win on the road. And then we're seeing, what Texas A&M has become of. But losing on the road to Vanderbilt, yikes. This program is in need of something right now.
Yeah, I mean, we were just hyping up Florida, saying they're in the right direction under Billy Napier, and I still think they are, but this is more of a testament to Vanderbilt and Clark Lee. I mean, he definitely looks like the right hire, getting this team to 5 wins this year, potentially 6. And I think that the bowl games, if there aren't enough spots, they actually use academic progress rating as one of the top tiebreakers to fill spots. And you got to think Vanderbilt would be up there in that category. So you never know. They could be bowl bound either way. But yeah, for Vanderbilt to win 2 games in a row and really look good against South Carolina the week prior to that, I mean, this team really has found a footing as of late. We know they got off to a hot start. They were 3-1 in the non-conference, and all of a sudden they have a chance to finish on a 3-0 hot streak.
Yeah, I mean, if you can just get into a bowl game, and Clark Lee isn't going to go anywhere. I mean, he's a Vanderbilt graduate. He played football there. So, like you mentioned, if they use that rule, then Vanderbilt's going to be a lock. I mean, we saw last year Rutgers was in that same scenario as well. They replaced Texas A&M. Granted, that was different reasons. Texas A&M had to bail because of COVID reasons. But this would be a story. We already see Kansas and UConn. Just add a team like Vanderbilt, and man, those are like 3 of the bottom feeder teams that are going to be bowl eligible. So
imagine that parlay.
Football this has been. But we will stay here in the conference matchup. So we're going to travel down to the 2:30 games. We have number 1 Georgia at Kentucky. Like I mentioned at the start of the show, only 16-6. But you just had to feel though like Georgia dominated this game, but still 16-6. I mean, I don't know to what to really expect in this one, but Kenny McIntosh, 19 carries, 143 yards, and a touchdown. Once again, Will Levis and the offense couldn't really move the ball effectively. Chris Rodriguez, Georgia took him out, and that was pretty much it for Kentucky. But, I mean, if Kentucky only had like a lick of an offense, they probably would have won this game. I mean, Georgia's offense, couldn't really do much outside of the running game. You know, they had that one touchdown, then all the rest were field goals. But you got to give credit to Kentucky's defense. But man, if only they had an offense in this one.
Yeah, I mean, Stetson Bennett just really didn't look the part. Will Levis didn't either. Luckily for Georgia, they found a little bit of room to run on the ground and did a good job of containing Chris Rodriguez, holding him out of the end zone. But for Georgia, we've seen them not kind of show up for some games against Missouri, Kent State, here. You knew they had clinched a spot in the SEC championship game, maybe kind of looking ahead a little bit. We saw this team when they were motivated against Tennessee and how good they were. But that win doesn't stand out as much as it did a week ago. If Michigan or Ohio State makes a statement on Saturday and then again in the Big Ten championship, I mean, there will be a little bit of recency bias, and Georgia really needs to turn it on as of late because they don't have an opportunity for a quality win until the SEC championship, whereas a Big Ten team has a chance at two of them.
Right, they got to take care of business this week, and if they even win the SEC championship, by a slim margin, they'll be in because they'll be undefeated SEC champion. But there's still a lot to play for here for the Georgia Bulldogs. So we will now go into the next game. We'll step here out of the conference matchups, and boy, we were wrong in this one. I mean, we both were on the Hilltoppers.
Not for a little bit.
Yeah, they got it close, but in the end, Tank Bigsby took over 110 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a 41-17 victory at home for the Auburn Tigers. So they're in the same scenario as Vanderbilt. They have 5 wins, but they're going to try and get that win on the road in Tuscaloosa, and that's not always easy. But this was definitely, Western Kentucky is one of the better teams in the Conference USA, looking like UTSA is going to take that one, but they're the second place in the Conference USA. They have 7 wins now. But I mean, there's Auburn, was going up against explosive offense. We were talking about, the explosive that Western Kentucky always has, going back to Bailey Zappi. But you got to give credit to this Auburn defense of locking down one of the best offenses in that conference.
Yeah, Western Kentucky held with them. It was 17-17 at the half, and then Auburn scores 24 unanswered, making this one a blowout. But yeah, Auburn still has an outside chance at making a bowl game. I think probably what's better for this team is to have the season end and get a new coach in and let them recruit so that they can bounce back better next year. But for Auburn, it was good to see the offense rolling. They really ran behind Tank Bigsby probably the last 2 games of his Auburn career, as he'll be NFL draft eligible. So whoever takes over this team will have to find a new bell cow back.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Tank Bigsby has been carrying the load for this Auburn offense. Robbie Ashford has really been struggling as well. They don't have TJ Finley available anymore since he's out with the injury. And then Zach Calzada didn't even see the field as well, as he's been dealing with injury as well. So it's been the true freshman that's had to carry the load for this team. All right, let's get into the game that we've all been waiting to talk about. And this is number 5, Tennessee at South Carolina, 63-38. And Vegas had the Volunteers as a 22.5-point favorite. But in the end, South Carolina should have been in the 22.5-point favorites. They got that 25-point win. Spencer Rattler, he was Chet's pick for who got that dog in him. 6 touchdowns, 438 yards. I bet South Carolina fans are wondering, where the heck has this been all year? We would have had like 8 or 9 wins. But let me give your thoughts first before I go in.
Welcome to being a South Carolina fan. Pretty inconsistent. They can look like this one week and then, dare I say,
lose to Kentucky.
Yeah. Or no, they beat Kentucky this year, but
I'm just saying, like,
lose to Missouri.
Right.
And you got Clemson this week. So South Carolina fans are hoping for that same showing. This one really did come out of nowhere, though. Spencer Rattler looked like the guy that they recruited to come here out of the transfer portal. Definitely his best game with 4 passing touchdowns, I think, maybe even more. But yeah, this offense looked really efficient. Jaheim Bell has basically become the running back. He was the starting tight end at the start of the year. So all sorts of craziness for South Carolina. But all of a sudden, the team has momentum again, and they need it because they're going on the road to number 9 Clemson. But if anything, I think the Palmetto Bowl just got a whole lot more interesting.
Yeah, hopefully this offense travels for South Carolina because they're going to need it. I feel like they're going to be facing a defense that actually has a pulse. I mean, I've been saying all year that Tennessee's defense isn't that great. And here South Carolina, they showed why. You just had to throw it downfield. We saw Josh Fan had that amazing catch. We saw the other receivers get as well. I mean, even DeCarrion Joyner scored 2 touchdowns. So that everything was going right for South Carolina. Even the backup quarterback was getting some love. Even Luke Doty, I'm sure that if they brought him in, he would have also scored as well. But yeah, 63 points is going to win you a lot of ball games. As I know that Tennessee scored 38 points, but I feel like South Carolina defense did a good job of facing that high tempo of Hendon Hooker in that offense. But man, I feel like every time that South Carolina got the ball, they were in the end zone. I watched this whole entire game. Very impressed, not only with this team, but the home crowd. That student section was bumping. So they were able to storm the field. They got fined. So did Vanderbilt. I mean, Vanderbilt had like the slowest
Oh my
rushing the
gosh.
field that I've ever seen in my life. But it was definitely money well spent, as I guess they'll have to replant the shrubs, as those are no longer there anymore.
Yeah, crazy. But yeah, South Carolina's done a really good job of getting the energy up under Shane Beamer. The LED lights and sandstorm. It's a very cool environment. Definitely brings back some nostalgia
Yeah.
for me. But really big win for South Carolina. And I mean, if they beat Clemson, Shane Beamer's going to be getting a raise.
Yeah, he might get a lifetime contract if he can beat Tennessee and the hatred Clemson in back-to-back weeks. But what a win it was for South Carolina. I think, nonetheless, this will definitely get them a better bowl position. I think they're going to go to one of the Florida bowls now. Maybe
Yeah, they're
they'll.
heading to the beach now. They
Yep.
dodge Shreveport or Houston.
Charlotte.
Charlotte, yes.
Yeah. All right. So what a game it was for the Gamecocks. We'll get to them once we get into our picks. And the next one is Arkansas blows out Ole Miss 42-27. This game, I texted in the group. This game was at 42-6 at one point. I mean,
Yeah.
Arkansas, they had KJ Jefferson, going from Malik Hornsby 1 week, only scoring 10 points and now scoring 42 with KJ Jefferson. That was good news if you're an Arkansas fan, to get your veteran quarterback back, for the last 2 weeks. This Arkansas season hasn't been, what it's been. But if you can finish out the season, with a win at Ole Miss and then with a win on the road against Missouri, your bitter rival. But Raheem Sanders, like I mentioned, what a game it was for him. 24 carries, 232 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Jefferson also had 3 touchdowns as well. So you could have, either or, and then Matt Landers also at it. So it was just everything working for Arkansas. It was really, like you mentioned, Ole Miss was able to run the ball. They got some garbage time touchdowns, but what a game it was for the Hawks.
Yeah, a lot of running in this one. It was 42-6. So, Judkins and Evans kind of padded some stats late, but yeah, KJ Jefferson. I mean, this is what we thought he would be going into the year, and we've seen glimpses of it. We haven't seen it all year. He's battled some injuries as well. Kind of comes with the territory being a mobile quarterback, but he's their leader, and he led them to an upset victory here. And they're in good shape if they beat Missouri, but Missouri will be fighting because they're fighting for bowl eligibility.
Yeah, absolutely. And that game is always close. So both of these teams will face off against their SEC bitter rivals in Week 13. And now we have 2 more games here in Week 12 before we get into the high anticipated matchups that we have here in Thanksgiving week. And we have Missouri getting, their 5th win on the year, 45-14. Going back to this Missouri team, I feel like they've had that close games, against Georgia and against Auburn. If they were to miss out in the bowl eligibility, I feel like all that team's going to be circling to that Auburn game. Like, we should have won that game. That should have been our 6th win of the season. But nonetheless, still a good win here against New Mexico State. Granted, New Mexico State, isn't a good football team, but they handled their business. Brady Cook, your SEC fantasy quarterback, did a good job through the air, 251 yards and 3 touchdowns for the Tigers as they will finish off their SEC slate against Arkansas. So one more game here in week number 12, and then we'll get right into the matchups. And this was the last game here in Death Valley. So no more games to go to here for us LSU fans until next
Maybe
year.
a Sugar Bowl.
Yeah, maybe as well. I mean, shoot, if that happens, I already told my parents that I'm going to it. But UAB at number 6, LSU. UAB gave them a scare in the first half, but in the end, Jane Daniels and the offense was able to get it going. And got to give credit to the LSU defense. I feel like that's been, the key defense that has been, the success and the story of this LSU team this season. But Noah Kane is our player of the game. 13 carries, 76 yards, 3 touchdowns. The news of Armani Goodwin being out for the year opens up the door for Noah Kane. And also, John Emery also fumbled the ball 2 times. So if you do that, you're going to get benched. So Noah Kane was able to get more carries, and he had, his best game in the purple and gold uniform.
Yeah, he really showed out. Hopefully, Josh Williams is able to come back, giving the Tigers their lead back. John Emery Jr., a little up and down season, disappointing. Love the player, but you can't fumble the ball against UAB when you got bigger games coming up.
And it was raining in this one, but that's still no excuse.
Yeah, definitely tough conditions, no doubt. I mean, it was like 40 degrees and raining. But yeah, Emery Jr. to me at this point, he's just a change of pace back. He's really good at receiving. But the guy that you trust with ball security is Josh Williams. And then if Noah Kane can kind of fill in, all of a sudden this backfield's doing just fine. And Jaden Daniels looked like himself. Kind of played late into the ball game, but LSU's got to pad that resume and get all the mistakes out the way with the A&M game coming up and then against Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, there's really, the attendance was not great at this LSU game. It seems
I'm guilty of it.
It was raining, I know, but speaking of that, I want to get into you went to the Saints Rams games in a suite, so give us that experience.
That was quite the experience. Getting to go to the Saints game this weekend. For those of you that hadn't heard, I traded in my LSU tickets in a way to get Saints tickets, which was a really cool experience. I was able to sit in the suites, which is always a treat. And I don't know, something about it. I must be a good luck charm for the Saints. They're 3-0 in games I've been to. So small sample size, 2 wins against the Rams. Yep. I'm sure nobody's arguing against that. But yeah, the Saints looked pretty good. Alvin Kamara got involved. Taysom Hill, they used him a lot more at quarterback and with some designed runs. And Andy Dalton was able to find Chris Olave on a 60-yard touchdown that happened pretty much right in front of us. That was really cool. And also the Tutu Atwell touchdown on the long pass was in the end zone we were sitting by. So we got to see a lot of the excitement. And yeah, a good experience. Always fun to be in the Dome and see the Saints try to salvage their season. I mean, they're still in playoff contention, surprisingly.
Yeah, I mean, it is a down NFC, but yeah, like you mentioned, we've always looked out in the Rams Saints game. I mean, the first year that we went to was like the game of the year. The Rams were undefeated. The Saints had 1 loss, and we got like cheap seats. And now you're here sitting in the suite. So it seems like every time the Rams come to town, we're always getting the good end of the deal. So I'm definitely glad that you got that experience. I'm sure that was a raucous environment there in the Dome. A much needed win for the black and gold. And also, I got to say, those uniforms those were sick.
I would like to see the Saints go to that as their primary, that and the color rush ones, and darken the gold helmet. And I think you got a winner.
Absolutely. So we will get back into SEC. I'm sure we'll talk more Saints if we go to any more games this season. But Week 12 pick'em results. I was able to get the win. I believe I can't remember the one game that really set me apart. I'll have to go back into the notes. But you finished 9-5. The upset specialist himself 9-5 as well. 10-4 as well. But still good. I mean,
we had a lot of games this week.
Yeah, we do have a lot of games this week. So I'm sure all of us are at least going to get into the double digits. But I would have to say, I'm going to tell you right now, this is the most disagreement that I've ever seen on this show. So I feel like we're going to break a record this week. So let's get right into it. Week 13 in the SEC, and it's presented by our friends over at Fanatics. And I'm going to give you the code right now as well. The code today is FLASH. You can save up to 65% off. And we're just a few days away from Black Friday, so I'm sure we're going to see some deals rolling over there at Fanatics. But you can use our link there, fanatics.93n6tx.net/sports scramble. Go ahead and use our link. And it's never too early to start that Christmas shopping. So if you want to buy your lovely friends or loved ones a gift, head over to our link and use their weekly code. All right, let's get into the Week 13 games in the SEC. And it's going to start earlier on Thanksgiving night. Mississippi State at number 20, Ole Miss. And like you see there, we got a little special background for every game. It just means more here in the SEC, and it also means more when we do these show graphics. So the Egg Bowl, once again, last year we saw Ole Miss take the trophy away from Mississippi State. Who's going to take the trophy? You're going to go with the Dogs, going to go with the Rebels?
I got to say, these graphics are just fantastic year in, year out. This was something we started about 2 or 3 years ago.
Yep.
I was much more involved in the graphics department at that time, but Tyler has taken and ran with it. So kudos to him for keeping that tradition alive and improving on it. So it looks really sharp. I think that the Rebels are going to look sharp in this one at home. It's hard for me to pick against them at home. I know they just got beat by Arkansas, but I still think this team's pretty talented. And I mean, the players got to give old Lane Kiffin a reason to stick around, right?
Yeah, this is like two offenses that are completely different. Mississippi State loves to air it out, and what Ole Miss loves to do is run the ball.
What would you expect rivals to have,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is going to be a lot of points. I do trust Mississippi State's defense more. And we have our weekly upset picks in the Sports Scramble. I did pick Mississippi State, so I can't go against that. I have to go 100%. So I think that the Bulldogs are going to be motivated. Ole Miss really took it to them in the Egg Bowl last year against Starkville. It really wasn't a close game. Ole Miss dominated that game. But I feel like this one's going to be a lot of points. So I'm going to be, when I'm stuffing my face on Thursday night, I'm going to be watching this game as well as alongside the other NFL games. I mean, it's the Patriots-Vikings. I'd rather watch the Egg Bowl as well. That'll probably be a snoozer. But I'm going to go with Mississippi State on the road. So I'm going to go with the maroon and white to get the trophy back. And Chet is going to go with he has to pick a Mississippi school, and it's going to be the maroon and white as well. So you're sitting pretty over there with the lone Ole Miss. So we will see if you can start off the week 1-0 and try and gain up a game on us. So now we'll head on to the Friday games here. We have two of them, this one being in the afternoon. Arkansas at Missouri, the Battle Line rivalry. Last year, I believe this was a close game. We see there Treylon Burks. He was a stud for Arkansas last year in the background. No Treylon Burks, but you do have Raheem Rocket Sanders. But will that be enough for Arkansas to beat Missouri?
I'm going to go with no, because Missouri is playing at home for bowl eligibility. And Missouri, they've been some tough luck losers this season, and most of their games have been close. This game particularly usually is pretty close. So I think Missouri kind of wins in mayhem and finds a way to win and gets to a bowl game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I definitely agree with you. Missouri has something to play for. It's not we're saying, Arkansas has something to play for as well. I mean, this could be, if they win this one, they could be in better position for a bowl game as well. But I just feel like Missouri has been on, the losing end of some of these close games, like I mentioned, the Auburn and the Georgia game. But at home, the way that Brady Cook has been playing, he's been very impressive. Give it a couple of years, he's still, a very young quarterback as well. Get him into the system. But I feel like Missouri's defense is going to be game playing around Raheem Sanders. I feel like he's still going to have a good game, but not as good of a game as Ole Miss. So I think it's going to be a close game, a 27-24 type of battle. Both offenses rely heavily on their run game. But in the end, I'm going to go with the Missouri Tigers. So we're both on track here. And Chet's going to go the opposite. He's going to go with the Arkansas Razorbacks. So like I mentioned, there's going to be a lot of disagreement on the show. And so far, our first two games has seen one. So now let's go on to the Sunshine Showdown of Florida at number 16, Florida State. Both of these teams are going in opposite directions. It looks like the Florida team is going in the wrong direction. Florida State at 8-3 and really impressive from the start. Their 3 losses have been close as well. So are you going to go with the Gators? Going to go with the Noles at home?
This is a surprising pick and one I
Oh,
might regret,
oh no.
but I'm going with the
Ah,
Gators. I just think that Florida's kind of had one of those up and down seasons, and this is just a weird rivalry game, and I just think they're going to pull off the upset behind Anthony Richardson. Maybe a farewell present for Gator fans. Anthony Richardson probably is going to declare for the NFL draft. I don't know if he should, but I do think he will go pro this year. So I think he shows out one last time in front of the home state in this rivalry game. But I think it'll be kind of crazy, a late special teams blunder or something. But I see Florida taking this one just barely.
yeah. I mean, this rivalry series has been dominated by Florida, but I just feel like this is the year that Florida State's going to do it. I'm going to go with the home team, go with the Noles. Florida's defense just hasn't been able to stop anyone. I saw Florida State many times this season. Jordan Travis is a really talented quarterback, and he's going to be going up against Anthony Richardson. So I feel like he's going to go punch for punch. So I'm going to go with Florida State in this one. And Chet is also going to go with the Noles as well. So you're the lone SEC. You're going to be representing the Southeastern Conference in this
SEC,
matchup.
SEC.
Yep, you're going to be chanting that. But Chet and I are going to go with the Noles, and you're going to go with the Gators. So we have our next matchup here. We'll see if we have any disagreements, as this is clean old-fashioned 8. Georgia Tech at number 1, Georgia. You're going to go with, the biggest upset. Georgia is the 35-point favorite. Or are you going to go with the Yellow Jackets?
Well, Jacob teased us with a Georgia Tech upset pick on Sports Scramble on Sunday. Of course, he was kidding. He would be crazy if he wasn't. Gotta go Georgia, though.
Yeah, I feel like Georgia's going to blow them out. Georgia Tech did have a good win this past weekend against North Carolina. That was a good win for that program. They have 5 wins now. So if they ultimately beat them, they can be 6-6, barring what had happened. They fired their coach midseason. If I just don't see it, Georgia's going to flex their muscle. And Chet is also going to go with the Dogs. So we're all rolling with the same team for the first time here on the show. And now the Palmetto Bowl. South Carolina at number 8, Clemson. Can South Carolina, slay the dragon? This has been a series that's been dominating the past couple of years by this Clemson team. Clemson blew the doors off them last year. So, the Gamecocks are going to want revenge. So you see Spencer Rattler and the South Carolina team, going 2 for 2 against the top 10 team.
I do. I'm going to pull the trigger right off the bat. Going with South Carolina. I was probably going to pick this no matter what, but they gave me a reason to do it after the big win on Saturday. And Clemson, they're a very good football team, and they might win this game, and they probably will win the ACC and be in playoff contention, probably get to the Orange Bowl. But this team is really good. But South Carolina, they found their swag this past weekend, and I think that they are sick and tired of losing to Clemson, and Shane Beamer is going to come up with a way to get it done. I would really wish this game was in Columbia, but that's okay. I think next year South Carolina should be better, and we really want to have that game at home because I think this time next year South Carolina will be ranked. So it'll be a ranked-on-ranked matchup for the first time in like 10 years, which is crazy to believe because it wasn't that long ago that these two programs are both like top 10 teams. So
yeah, absolutely.
I see South Carolina getting it done. And also next year, I'm going to get you a new graphic. I'm going to get you DJ Swearinger staring over Andre Ellington lying on the ground after he just like pummeled him.
No, I was trying to get recent games, so I got this one from last year's
That's
games.
one of the best pictures of all time.
Oh yeah, we can start doing that next year, doing like the best pictures of all time. But yeah, this was a tough one for me. It's hard to not pick South Carolina, off of that big performance. But I'm going to go with the home team here. Go with Clemson. Their offense, isn't the greatest. I definitely know that. Will Shipley has been the guy for them. But I feel like Clemson's defense is going to give South Carolina and Spencer Rattler a problem. And also, you can just pull up Chet's graphic as well. This is also why I picked Clemson
We
for
couldn't
the
have 3
SEC.
Gamecock upsets.
Yeah, we can't just pick all Gamecocks. So what had happened? So I'm trying to like let the upset happen. So that's why I had the Clemson logo on.
It's a good
In the middle.
provisionary, you know?
Yeah,
You're not crazy. You're picking the number 8 team in the country. It should play out in your favor. But if it doesn't, then you just helped our upsets.
but can you imagine? You know, if we see Clemson versus Alabama in the New Year's Six, I bet everyone would love that.
I
So
mean, it probably is
we're
shaping up
definitely
to be that way.
yeah, it's shaping up to be that way, especially if Clemson takes care of business this week and then beats North Carolina, and then Alabama if they can beat Auburn in the Iron Bowl as well. But should be a good matchup. I'm definitely going to be watching the Palmetto Bowl this Saturday. So let's go on, continue in this Saturday slate, continue with the rivalry game, the battle for the Governor's Trophy, number 25, Louisville. They jumped into the rankings after beating then ranked NC State. And they're facing at Kentucky. So you're going to go with the ACC, go with the SEC. I know that you went with the SEC in the last SEC versus ACC matchup. So you're going to go with the Cats, go with the Cards.
I sure did, but Will Levis is telling you what's happening to his draft stock in this photo, pointing down. And I'm going
The L's down.
with the Cardinals in this one. Louisville, they're not a great football team, but they've shown life, and they look pretty good on offense. So I'm going to go with Louisville in this one because Kentucky just really has had a hard time getting that offense going. Will Levis, he just really hasn't had a lot of time, and he hasn't been enough of a playmaker for me to believe in the Wildcats.
Yeah, I feel like these are two of the most up and down programs this year. I mean, Louisville can have a good win, then the next next week they get blown out. Same thing with Kentucky. So I think Kentucky at home is going to get it done in this rivalry game. Kentucky dominated the matchup last year. You see in that picture, Will Levis putting the L's down. We'll see if he gets that cocky once again. But I think that Chris Rodriguez Jr. is due for a big game as well. This Kentucky offense hasn't been great. Louisville as well. So I think this is going to be, one of the more lower scoring games of the weekend. But in the end, I'm going to go with the Cats. So Chet is also going to go with Kentucky. So once again, find yourself in the lonesome here, rolling with the ACC team, going with the Louisville Cardinals. So we will continue on with, we do have a lot of games here in the rivalry week, and we're definitely not complaining about that.
Look at that photo.
Yeah. This was last year's game, and crazy to think Sean Shivers is not there anymore. He's now at Oregon. So Auburn at number 7, Alabama, the annual Iron Bowl. Usually this is a ranked versus ranked matchup. We saw that crazy game last year, 3 overtimes. It came down to the 2-point off. So do we see that happen again, or do we see Alabama cruising in this one?
I don't see it being that close. I do think that it's a rivalry game, and Auburn might hang in there for a little bit, but then I see Alabama running away with this one. I'm going to go Alabama 42-14.
Yeah, I don't see this one being close. I know this is a rivalry game, but Auburn's offense just doesn't have the firepower to keep up with Alabama. So I'm going to go with the Crimson Tide in this one, like in this picture. I mean, we saw helmets, getting flown off. So we'll see if we see that again. The Iron Bowl always gives us some great memories, but in the end, I'm going to go with the home team, go with the Tide. And Chet is also going to go with the Crimson Tide. So we are agreeing for the second time in this PowerPoint. So we'll go on now to the next game here. We'll see if we can continue to agree here. Number 5, LSU at Texas A&M. The last time that we saw these two teams was last year. LSU, probably with their worst team in a couple of years, still beat Texas A&M, was a highly ranked team. Jeray Jenkins caught a pass for Max Johnson. Now Max Johnson's the A&M quarterback, but he's not even playing this one. It's going to be Connor Weigman. So there are some storylines in this matchup, but you're going to go with the Tigers, go with the Aggies to pull off the upset.
Well, I don't want LSU to sleep through this one and lose to Texas A&M before the SEC championship, because to me that would just ruin the entire season for me, let alone eliminate them from the playoffs, regardless of what they can do.
And the New Year's Six
against
Bowl.
the Bulldogs. Yeah, I mean, a lot of consequences, but Brian Kelly knows that. They're going to get it done. LSU wins. I mean, like you said earlier, this Aggie team didn't even score 20 points against UMass, so I just don't think it's really in them to win.
Yeah, I feel like Devon A-Chain, I don't know if he's going to play anymore this season. I think that, has A&M shut him down? I think that, or is it Devon A-Chain, shutting himself down and getting ready for the NFL draft? That could be a thing as well. But the way that LSU's defense has been playing, A&M's offense hasn't been great. So I feel like Jaden Daniels was in the offense, was able to get it back. I think that Josh Williams is also going to be back. I think that was just a week off rest. He got banged up against Arkansas. So I think that this game will be close in the end. LSU comes in as a 10-point favorite. But in the end, I think that LSU will win this game. And like I mentioned last year, LSU had one of their worst teams, and they still beat this A&M team. So I think that A&M's defense could give LSU's defense some problem, keep this one low score. But in the end, I got the Bayou Bengals pulling off the road victory. And Chet is also going to go with LSU as well. So we're all rolling with the purple and gold to finish off the year 10-2. And crazy would that be, especially after the early loss to Florida State and then, getting drubbed at home against Tennessee.
Yeah, it would be an incredible finish, and then the trip to Atlanta the next weekend.
Could we see Brian Kelly get some, Coach of the Year accolades if that happens?
Yeah, I think he definitely will get some votes, especially with Tennessee kind of slipping up down the stretch. Josh Heupel probably is losing ground, but ultimately, I mean, yeah, I think he'll get some votes, but I don't know if he's the odds-on favorite to win it.
Yeah, I think my odds-on favorite would have to be Sonny Dykes right now, especially if TCU runs the table and goes
That's a good
undefeated.
choice.
So we will see of our awards. Maybe we can do an end of the season award show. So now we have our final game here in the SEC. And I feel like a lot of people are going towards Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt might be a popular pick in the betting world this week to at least cover in this one. But number 10, Tennessee at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt is rolling off of a 2-game winning streak. Tennessee coming off of that blowout loss against South Carolina. So you have Tennessee rebounding here, and you have Vanderbilt, clinching their 6-1 in the season.
Well, if you had a good intuition about this game this time last week, you should have went ahead and put the bet on, because after Vanderbilt's big win and Tennessee's big loss, the odds are nowhere near what they probably were. But Vanderbilt's got all the hype. Tennessee kind of lost their luster. If Hendon Hooker was playing in this game, there'd be absolutely no doubt about it in my mind that Tennessee would win. He's not playing, but Joe Milton, I think he'll do just enough to win. I mean, Tennessee is a very talented team. They didn't just get here because of one player. I think they had a really bad loss to South Carolina, but ultimately I think they rebound. It will be close there for a while, but I think Tennessee's offense is just too high-powered, and I think they'll pull away. I think they'll win this one 42-24.
Yeah, I think that Vanderbilt's going to give them, a shot at this one. Vanderbilt's going to be playing for their postseason lives here. They have a lot to play for in this matchup, so I wouldn't be surprised if this is a close score going to the half. But even with Joe Milton, I mean, that's not really a concern for me. I think that he's, talented, but not talented enough as Hendon Hooker. But I think that he has the receivers, Jalen Hyatt, Cedric Tillman, Brew McCoy will be able to get the job done. But they might be able to lean heavily on Jabari Small. He's been one of the more underrated running backs in the SEC. But in the end, I got to go with Tennessee. They're just a better team. They're number 10 for a reason. So I'm going to go with Tennessee to get the job done. And Chet's going to go the opposite way. He's going to go with the Vanderbilt Commodores.
All right.
We talked a lot about it on Sports Scramble, so I knew that we were going to see this V pop up. So let's see if the Doors can get it done. That would be a heck of a story. We would love to talk about Vanderbilt in the postseason, get more love for the Vanderbilt fans as well. So Chet's given some Nashville love to the Doors. So we will see what happens down there in Nashville. So with that, now we will head on over to outside of the SEC, and that is presented by Yeti. Yeti also offers free shipping on orders over $50, so you can stock up on all your coolers, drinkware, and luggage. It's durable enough for any adventure. So like I mentioned, holiday season is around here, so some good Christmas gifts to start putting on your list. You can use our link there, yetius.pxf.io/scramble. All right. We got some really good games, all ranked matchups, as you see down there at the bottom of the screen. So let's get right to it. Starting with our first game here of the weekend, and this is the American matchup. And I honestly forgot to put the animation, so there's our picks already. Number 19,
Oh,
Tulane at number 24, Cincinnati. You're going to roll with the Green Wave.
flash picks, we just lay it
Yep.
on the line. Yeah, I'm gonna go with the home state team here, Tulane. My soon-to-be father-in-law is a big Tulane guy, so I spent the weekend talking to him and learning a little bit more about the Green Wave and the season they've had. And he's a good recruiter because I think they're going to pull off the road win against Cincinnati. The winner of this game will get to host the American Athletic Conference Championship game and probably play UCF. But if UCF were to slip, these two teams would play again next week.
Yeah, I mean UCF losing to Navy last week pretty much opens the door for the winner of this matchup. To get that automatic bid that the Group of Five does to go on to the New Year's Six bowl game. Tulane has been a very good story. Last year they went 2-10. I mean they were in the water, and like you mentioned, I definitely get your pick. You can't pick against the family, but I am. I'm going to pick Cincinnati at home. I feel like Tulane. This is going to be an offensive battle. Cincinnati's defense will be able to test Matt Pratt and that Tulane offense. But I'm going to go with the Cincinnati Bearcats. This has been a team that no one has really talked about. I mean, they're 8-2. They're still a very good football team. Still got one of the best coaches in Luke Fickell. So I think that their defense is going to flex their muscle, get a timely turnover that will ultimately shift into their favor. So I'm going to go the Bearcats, and Chet's going to go Tulane. So I am just fine here
That's a
being
good spot
on
to
the
be in.
lone boat of the Cincinnati Bearcats. So let's go on now to the next game of the week here. I put animations on this one for our lovely viewers.
A little bit
Uh,
more suspense on here.
the game here, number 3, Michigan at number 2, Ohio State. A lot of implications. The winner of this one moves on to the Big Ten championship, but ultimately, the Big Ten West winner won't even probably face really even a pulse in that one. It's looking like either Iowa or Purdue. So this is pretty much, a playoff semifinal right here. So I know that you had Michigan in the preseason in your playoffs. So you're going to stick with them.
Well, I'd be kind of a hypocrite to not. So I'm going to have to go with them. Michigan, to me, just looks like the better team as of late. I would have to get an update on Blake Corum. I didn't really think about that
Yeah.
until we were here live on the show. Not sure if he's healthy enough to play.
I mean, he's going to play, I feel like. I mean, you got to play.
Yeah, if he can walk, he's got to play. But yeah, I mean, Ohio State nearly got beat by Maryland, and I think they're a very good football team, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them win at home. But Michigan, they look pretty dang good, and I think they're kind of getting discounted by some of the national media. So I really think both of these teams will find a way to make the playoff, though. If this game is close,
Yeah.
they'll need a little bit of help, with maybe Southern Cal getting upset this weekend or something. But to me, I think the cards will fall into place
Yeah,
for both of these teams.
they would need a little bit of chaos, but not too much. I feel like the loser of this one, you can't really lose in a blowout. I mean, if you lose like on the last play of the game, like sure, like you can definitely get in even without chaos. But I mean, we saw it in last year's game. Michigan's offensive line, the running game was able to get it going. They were able to flex their muscle in the ground game. But Ohio State has been circling this one. Both of these teams have been struggling. Ohio State versus Michigan. Michigan's going to, this is the best defense in the country. They're ranked number 1. So they could be, even Ohio State has some injury problems as well. We haven't seen Jackson Smith and Jigba step on the field in a couple of weeks. That's their star receiver. But in the end, it's in the horseshoe. I think that the revenge is going to be a factor. I'm going to go with Ohio State in this one. I think it's going to be a close game, but a very defensive battle. I think that Blake Corum is going to play in this one. If he doesn't, it's pretty much a lock that Ohio State's going to win. I think that J.J. McCarthy has had some problems in the passing game, but in the end, I'm going to go with Ohio State. I think it's going to be close, a 27-24 game. So I'm going to go with the Buckeyes and winning this one. Like you mentioned, Michigan's not out of it yet, and they would need an LSU and a USC, loss to feel comfortable of their playoff hopes, even with a loss here. But we could see a Michigan-Georgia repeat once again. So we will see what happens. And Chet's going to go with the Buckeyes as well. So you're
Moo!
the lone Wolverine once again. So let's go on to the next game here in this rivalry week. And we're going to head out to the Pac-12, the annual Civil War matchup. Number 9, Oregon at number 21, Oregon State. Oregon was able to beat Utah at really Pac-12 after dark at the 9:30 kickoff. Oregon State has been, a very underrated team in the Pac-12. Only 3 losses, but all 3 losses are very close. So are going to roll the Ducks or the Beavers, and what could be a highlighter matchup if they were the green and then the orange again?
Oh boy. Well, Nike will have a field day with this one. Um, it's good to see Oregon State on the map, and to me, I know that we've given the Pac-12 a lot of crap over the years, but this conference looks really good, and I think that they are in line to make the playoff. With Southern Cal and then Oregon's really rebounded nicely as well. I think Oregon just really has a handle on this series. It's a tough trip over to Corvallis, but I think Oregon, they're a true and tested team, and I think they'll get it done.
Yeah, this is a tough road trip to Corvallis. I mean, I know that this has been a series dominated by Oregon, but Oregon State has been playing them pretty close. Oregon State's defense is going to have to, show up. Bo Nix, didn't have a good game against Utah. Utah's defense was able to get it going. Oregon State's going to have the same success. But you know what? I'm going to go with the Beavers at home. Why not? Let's shake up the Pac-12 here a little bit.
All right.
So I'm going to go with the Beavers at home getting a close win. I think it's going to be a high-scoring shootout like it always is. It's always a high-scoring game in the Civil War. But I'm going to go with the Beavers at home. I think that they've been, on Missouri. They've been on, some of those close losses. So I think they finally get it done. And Chet's going to go with the Beavers as well. So you're once again – numerous times you've been on that lonesome. So
man, my record could be good, it could be bad.
Could be good or could be bad. We will see in conference championship week. What the standings are going to be like. But we have one more game, so we'll see if we have any more disagreements. And this is a big game. A lot of playoff implications here, especially for USC. Notre Dame has been, the story. A very, rough start. Ever since losing to Marshall, this team has just been clobbering teams. I mean, they just beat Boston College. I know they're a bad team, but 44-0 in the snow, still a very good win. Number 15 Notre Dame at number 6 USC. This rivalry matchup, both of these teams do not like each other. So who do you have winning on the field?
Oh man, I kind of want to be the chaos creator, but I do like where Southern Cal is at this moment. If this game was in South Bend, I probably would flip to Notre Dame. But Caleb Williams, to me, honestly looks like the most impressive player in the country at the quarterback position. So I think Southern Cal gets it done. And I think if Southern Cal wins out, they will be in the playoff because the Pac-12 championship game is going to be a top 15 matchup. And Southern Cal's only loss would be to Utah on a 2-point conversion. So I think Southern Cal is in good shape to snag that number 4 spot.
Yeah, absolutely. If USC wins out, they will definitely be in the 4 spot, especially, if Michigan, Ohio State. I feel like the loser of that wouldn't really have the resume to match up, especially Michigan. Like, their schedule hasn't been great. I feel like their only good win is against Penn State, and that's about it. But like you mentioned, you wanted to be the chaos creator. I am. I'm going to have Notre Dame.
All right.
Pulling off the upset, shaking it up. So it would be interesting. We have Ohio State loser of that, and could we also see USC losing as well? So, the playoff rankings by next week, we could see a major shakeup. So I just feel like the way that Notre Dame has been playing has given me some confidence. The running game has been able to go, and USC's defense has not been able to stop anyone. So I feel like their offense is going to get it going. Notre Dame's defense is going to be the best defense that USC has faced all year. I mean, we saw it with UCLA. Utah wasn't able to stop them as well. So, Caleb Williams has been playing really good. He threw for close to 500 yards last week. So he's going to have another good game for USC. I think it's going to be very close. This rivalry game is always coming down to the wire. But I'm going to go with the Fighting Irish on the road. Why not? So, it's not going to be much of a home environment anyway. So I'm going to go Notre Dame. And Chet is going to go with the Fighting Irish. So you can't script this as well as for you.
Another one.
We've been sitting on the island for the majority of the show. So I feel like the standings are going to be as crazy as it has been all year. So like I mentioned, a lot of disagreements. This has to be a record. I feel like every game that we have gone to has been, we haven't been on one side, probably 3 games in total.
Makes for entertaining television.
Yes, it does. So that is going to be, an exciting time here in weekends. I mean, literally all the games that we looked outside the SEC are all ranked matchups. So we'll definitely be turning on the TV once we're stuffing our faces this week. So let's get into some of the hot topics that we have. And the first one is the injury news out of Knoxville. Hendon Hooker is done for the season with a torn ACL. Like we mentioned, Joe Millen is going to get the start against Vanderbilt, and we'll have to get the start whatever bowl game that they get to. I feel like if Tennessee beats Vanderbilt, they're in a good position for a New Year's Six bowl game. There could be some shuffling if, barring a Georgia loss, or LSU loss or whatever. But I feel like Tennessee still is going to be in a good position, finish the season 10-2, get to a good bowl game, and see if you can, face off against a really good opponent. So the next hot topic we have is probably the hottest topics that we have this season, addressing the Lane Kiffin to Auburn rumors. I mean, there was already a tweet from a reporter that he was already gone to Auburn, and Lane Kiffin said himself, like, what the heck sources do you have? So do you think that
But he
Lane
didn't
Kiffin,
deny it.
he didn't deny it as well, but do you see Lane Kiffin going to Auburn?
I mean, I could see it if Auburn wants to give him a number like the one you see beneath there. But I see that being a lateral move. And why would you want to move further into Alabama's shadows? Yeah. And I know that Auburn probably has the resources to be better in the next 3 to 5 years. You also have to deal with
Georgia at Auburn too.
That too. Have Georgia and Alabama as your primary rivals on your schedule every year. I mean, I get it. The SEC is going to shake up a little bit, and there's going to be some new scheduling, and there's going to be more money coming into the league. But why would you want to press restart during that transition? I mean, there's going to be teams that fall back, an SEC hierarchy for the next 5 to 10 years based on where they're at whenever they do this realignment, because teams are going to have new schedules and new opponents. And I don't know why you wouldn't want to just stay put where you are in the conference. I mean, taking over a team that really doesn't have a lot of talent at that time, that would just be a really weird move for me.
Yeah, it would be a really weird move. And like you mentioned, I mean, you have to deal with Georgia and Alabama. I just don't know if, Ole Miss's primary rival right now in the SEC East is Vanderbilt. So, I mean, you would be content, you really don't have to recruit anyone outside, if you're an Ole Miss, in the state of Mississippi, you're really the only one that's going to
win the Egg Bowl, you're good.
Yeah, win the Egg Bowl. I mean, players in Mississippi are going to go to the winner of the Egg Bowl. I mean, and there is Mississippi State isn't too happy with Mike Leach. So, if they lose that one, then we could be talking about Mike Leach being out the door of Mississippi State. But we'll definitely, keep track of what Lane Kiffin and what Auburn does as well. The next one is some more coaching news. Kentucky's Mark Stoops is now going to make $8.6 million per year in the new deal. Do you still think that Mark Stoops is the guy for Kentucky?
I think he's the guy for Kentucky. I mean, they've had an up and down year, lost some games they shouldn't have. But they've really looked competitive when it's counted. And, I don't think Mark Stoops is a bad coach, and I don't think Kentucky could do much better, but that's an alarming amount of money.
Yeah.
I know that the contracts are only going to get larger from here on out. And once some of this new league money kicks in, some SEC coaches will get a pay raise, but, that's setting the standard high at $9 million a year there.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely a high pay raise that he is getting. And then the last one that we have, since it's rivalry week, we'll get to this question. What is the best rivalry game here in the SEC?
I think that overall, just based on history and the fact that it's two SEC schools, I would have to say Alabama, Auburn. But there have been some more competitive rivalries in recent history. And to that regard, I don't know. I mean, I think South Carolina Clemson's usually a good one. Hasn't been as of late. But as far as competitiveness goes, I mean, the Egg Bowl just kind of jumps out at me.
Well, that's mine as well. I mean, it might be a little biased since I grew up in Mississippi and was more familiar with that rivalry growing up. But yeah, it's got to be the Egg Bowl. I mean, every year there's always, that one play that you're always looking at. So I feel like this this one is just going to be another storyline in that one. But the Iron Bowl is probably number 2 behind that. Well, it's like whenever South Carolina and Clemson, like you mentioned, I mean, whenever both of those teams were good, I mean, that was, not only the best rivalry in the SEC, but in the country as well. So hopefully this year gives us another treat. Hopefully it's closer than it was in the previous years, but I'm sure it will, especially if Spencer Rattler can sling it through the air like he did on Saturday night. Well, another show and another week that is down for SEC talk. So no questions tonight. That's all right. So that's going to be the end of the show. Thanks for everyone tuning into the show. If you want to tune into any of our other shows, we have Sunday nights, Sports Scrambles. It's going to be rolling. Monday afternoon is college football coast to coast. And then Tuesday nights, yours truly, SEC talk. So next week, we will review week 13 in the SEC. And that'll be it for the regular season. We'll shift our eyes and attention to the postseason play, the conference championship. We'll have the SEC championship and also the other Power 5 in the group of 5. So hope everyone has a great week. Hope everyone has a happy Thanksgiving. And we will see you back here next time here on SEC Talk. Any closing words from you, Wade?
No, just everybody have a great Thanksgiving and take in some of this good football with us, and join us on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, and we'll talk about it 3 straight days. Should be good. I should be making my return to Sports Scramble this week, so stay tuned to that as well. And then, as always, Jacob and Tyler and Chet have been holding down the fort with some of our guests. Neil and Cameron have subbed in admirably, and then Jacob and Tyler do a great job on their show as well. So lots of good coverage for you.
So, yes, if you want to stay tuned for Wade's return on Sunday night, we're going to be definitely happy to have you back. So hope everyone has a good week, and we will see you back here next time. So long.